Hey there, BookTube. Noah, everyone who reads It Must Converse is the channel. Thanks for coming back by again. Another and the final science and faith discussion is on. Tom, thank you very much for introducing us to this text. And Dario, thank you for coming by. Dario's in Sweden. Very, very late for him. I'm after work for me, you know. Christy, thank you for being here for this one as well. We were thinking we're gonna do this one a little more informal discussion and share some of our path. When getting into this kind of discussion, there is a tendency for people to take something that you say and immediately put you in a camp. So there has then been that kind of concern or that kind of ideas that we were talking about, and I said, hey, well, you know, why don't we just share our personal path and belief on the last one? I think it's a great idea. But first, why did we do this? What is the aim of opening up this kind of dialogue? Why is it beneficial? Things like that. So, Tom, I'm going to defer to you for that one. Dario, I'm sure he'll be back. I'm going to defer to you first because you did the adaptation for this text. So you have a more experience with the text than we all do. And I'm super grateful for it myself, brother.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. It's, I think, really what got this conversation started. Hey, Dario, you're back. Thank you.
Hi, I will stop pushing buttons. Sorry, guys.
This conversation started was this book that I adapted, and I think the fact itself that this dialogue was generated, to the fact that the book works, you know, because the entire point of the original book, because let's remember, I didn't write anything. I only adapted it into a graphic novel, is to spark a dialogue, not only to spark a dialogue, but to generate a patient dialogue on sensitive matters like faith, like science, like atheism, and I think this is actually at least limited to what we've done, what has happened, and then obviously if some people watching find it useful and interesting and beneficial, that would be fantastic. That would be really, really wonderful. So that's my take coming from the book, and I like you said, Noah, for us to realize that all the four of us have had different paths in our lives, and we got to where we are in our worldview, in our spiritual life, in a sense. It's interesting because then if we can retrace back how we got here, that could also be something potentially useful and that people can compare with their own experience.
Very cool. Christy, Dario, y'all got anything that y'all want to add in on that? Like maybe why you find this kind of dialogue beneficial? Why we jumped into this? You know, personally, you know, this is going to be, today is a lot more personal thoughts, feelings, beliefs, kind of discussion, and we'll kind of bore that out in a little bit, but maybe you want to say something as to why you think it's beneficial to have this kind of discussion and why you entered into it.
Christy, go ahead.
Well, I personally, I love talking to people of faith in general. Honestly, they're my favorite people in existence. I feel like I always am coming into people like me when I'm talking with people of faith. So I just feel like instantly more at ease. I feel like I'm among people that I just understand and love instantly. So I love talking with you guys. So and Christina, hi Christina. So that reason obviously is very personal. And I think also Jesus does say, I quote this a lot, but Jesus says, you know, you will know them by your love. And I just think that, I think it's evident when believers talk amongst each other. I just think when you can come together and talk together, even when everybody does have different beliefs, and you can talk, and believers of different faiths, and you can talk, and people who don't believe anything that is similar, even if you're not a believer, and you can just talk, you know, about your different things that you believe, and not argue, you know, in a mean-spirited way, you know, just talk in love, have a good dialogue. I think that that says a lot, about you as people. And I think that's really just what we're doing here. And that's the whole point. We're all on our own paths, like Noah said. So yeah, that's it.
I definitely understand that. I think that speaks to something that Tom had said in our second video, when we were talking about discussion and getting to some points. You had said, Tom, that a friendship is needed first in order to engage in this kind of dialogue, and have it be something fruitful, because the person opposite you, or contrary to a belief that you might hold or something like that, is still a person, and is a person that, we need to treat as we would treat anybody else, not somebody that we can, nail and relegate to, you know, just, oh, they're wrong, they're unthinking, superstition, or whatever words might be that you just kind of chalk them up. But when there's a friendship and real, community there, then it is, able to be a real discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dario, what do you think?
No, I really appreciate this discussion, because it's not very often you can have these types of discussions without argumentation. It is, I think, you know, it's sharing different points of views and points of view, and letting just things come into you, and then you basically consider them, and yeah, and kind of digest that, you without thinking about, do I agree, do I disagree, but just to kind of, you know, feel the thought. I like that, because in most of the situations where these topics are discussed, at least about the situations that I took part in, ended in some kind of argumentation, not with me arguing, but people start to argue and start, you know, calling each other, you know, stupid, or you know, fundamentalists or whatever. You know, it becomes so infected very, very easily. And you know, when you came up with this idea that, you know, that we should have these conversations, I jumped into it, you know, exactly for this reason. You know, for as one of these rare occasions where actually you can talk without getting into conflict, or without getting to a situation where somebody is trying to sell to you their view on the world. Because, you know, this is, to me, this is, you know, deeply personal. It doesn't have to have to anything to do with other people. It's about, you know, my journey. And when I got this opportunity, I just jumped straight on it.
Nice. I like that a lot. It's something to keep in mind, that everybody that is doing, or involved in wanting to engage in conversation with others, that kind of thing, we respect that everybody's on their own path and doing their own thing. One of the things that I was thinking myself as to entering into this dialogue, because the science and faith text is a perfect place for it to go through, and I think we covered a lot of ground in those first two discussions. I think we really did do a good job touching on a lot of points, not exhaustively, of course, and probably not very adeptly, because we're just regular people. But we at least gave a good example of what a healthy dialogue might look like, I think. So I wanted to elevate. I thought maybe elevating that kind of discussion. Tom, in your last video that you did, you were talking about elevating the discussion of from people that, you know, don't know the other side, and so they might state what is contrary to their belief, very simplistic and wrong. You know, basically wrong, because we're complex beings and our beliefs are complex. Whys, there's a lot of that kind of thing that goes into it. And the main reason that I personally had to jump into this kind of discussion is to foster understanding, or a desire for understanding in other people, considering how diverse people are in their beliefs. We do not have a fair representation here either. There is so many different people. There are so many different belief systems that when it comes down to it, you have to just be ready to get out of your comfort zone in this kind of conversation. But at the end of the second video, I said, and this is kind of to frame what it is that we're doing. I said, you know, it doesn't really serve this kind of conversation to speak generally about people, whether it's people that you know, you think believe the way you do or don't or whatever. It is much more effective in this kind of conversation to speak only of yourself. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to take some time and share our paths and have a little discussion afterwards. Hopefully, if there's any questions or comments or elaboration that wants to be had. So let's get into it. Dario, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thanks, Noah. I will. Yeah, it's this is a very, very personal journey. You know, you go through, and you know, to start it all. You know, just to be clear, I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not atheist. I'm not. I previously I would have called myself agnostic, but I don't want to call myself that neither, because I don't want to put any label on it. Because, you know, I've discovered when you say agnostic, then people say that, yeah, but you cannot be that, because, you know, either God exists or not. But it's just, I don't want to put any. I don't comprehend really anything about being or about God that I would be able actually to frame that and put any definitions on it. It just this is, you know, I'm on exploration journey, and this is a journey I've been on as long as I can remember. You know, I grew up in former Yugoslavia. It's a, you know, communist society, pretty not, you know, very. It wasn't really hardcore communist, but still communist society. You know, you couldn't really. The religion was not something that was perceived as something positive. These, you know, spiritual explorations where you directly get compartmentalized and put into, you know, some religious group if you start talking about that. So it was very, very, you know, kind of a materialistic oriented society, and I grew up with that. You know, my parents were very, you know, modern people, secular, not interested at all in these types of things. We didn't discuss very much this at home. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, I grew up very, very close to them. They were Christians, deep, you know, deeply believing in God, Orthodox Christians.
Orthodox Christians meaning Catholic?
No, Orthodox, like Russian Orthodox, but you know, Serbian Orthodox, and you know, I grew up very, very close to my grandparents, and you know, the religion wasn't really present in society, but it was present in their home. It was present in this, you know, quite small group of active Christians that my grandfather was. So when I grew up there, you know, with different holidays, you know, an Orthodox priest would come to their home. Everything would have been very quiet, and so I kind of, you know, experienced growing up in that close kind of family, religious family, while at the same time living in this communist society. That was very, very. We had, in school we had a subject that was called Marxism and socialistic self-governance. I had it like since I was a small kid. Instead of religion, instead of sociology, instead of philosophy, instead of logic, you had that subject. That subject was covering everything, and that was the ideology, right? So you grow up with that, but still as a kid, I could feel this fear coming over me of fear of death, really, and being scared what is going to happen when light goes out. Is that just light goes out and that's it? And that was such a terrifying thought. And in that terrifying thought, you start seeking for something. And what was very close was the religion of my grandparents there, but still it didn't really give me any solace in this fear, because I couldn't connect the dots. I couldn't get to a position where I get it. I'm content with the explanation how everything hangs together. My grandparents, until their death, I was very fortunate to have them alive, long into my adulthood. Until their death, they were true believers, and when they died, they went to God. And I was always envious of that. Like, how I wish I could be like that as well. They take all of these fears and be really sure about that. Everything is gonna be all right. I couldn't get there, and this fear. It was very egoistic. It's a fear for my own death, right? So I was trying to explore this, and I had several religious stints when I tried to be religious, but I couldn't try to read Bible. I read it like I read, I don't know, Norse mythology, or it is just it's fiction to me. Of course it conveys deep messages, morals and so on, but it's still I still see it as a fiction. I cannot get it there. And then when I got more adult and got into university and eventually into grad school, start exploring philosophies of science quite a lot, and I started to feel that I found something that actually getting me comfort in here, right? And try to connect the dots and learning scientific exploration method, and so that gave me comfort for a while. It did, because you dig and you learn more and more, and then all of a sudden you find yourself kind of enclosed in a bubble that I can look in different directions, I can explore, but still I cannot get out from there and understand what is this bubble doing here, right? and then you get back into this into the same uncertainties and same fears coming back and so on. But over the years, then when I became a parent, this fear changed into grief instead, because it all of a sudden this egoistic kind of fear of death turned into grief, into what if this ends and I don't have a connection to my children anymore, right? And then the motive changed, but the search didn't really change. And what is really permeating this whole this whole journey of in transition from fear to grief, it is permeated with the hope that I will find the answer to how everything hangs together, and that there is something after a light goes out, that the light really doesn't go out. It's there is something happens, and this hope is actually behind the seeking for answers, right? So I would buy any story if I could feel in here that it gives me answers. Anything, but nothing gives me answers really. And this, so I kind of the whole idea of organized religion and so on and so forth, these rituals, everything, that doesn't give me answers. So this journey, I'm pretty sure that this is going to go on until the very moment of my death, and then hopefully it will just not be the end. I remember, I don't know, again, I need to mention a book, I'm sorry. Every Man by Philip Roth. Have you read that one?
No.
It is about a man who lives one of these strange Rothian lives. I think all of his heroes was his alter egos in one way or another. But this spoiler alert if you haven't read it, just but at the end of this book, it ends abruptly. He dies, and there is no more. And when I read that book, it was such a terrible. It's like falling off the cliff. Such a terrifying ending. And this is all this fear I carry inside of myself that is driving this spiritual search. So it sounds terrible. I know, but I think that many people who watch this or listen to this recognize themselves on some level, and it's full. Also, its search is full of joy. I discover new threads all the time. I discover new threads when you guys are talking. I discover new threads here. This was wonderful reading. And I know, Tom, you are, humble and say, but I didn't really write this. But the way you have packaged this into format that is easily digestible to somebody like me, who I know that Alpheus and Giuseppe, they are not translated, and I doubt that I would be kind of have a patience to read through everything, but this is digestible. It gave me, new insights and new openings, and who knows, maybe one of these paths is going to lead to the light, like the light they came to at the end. And this was really lovely. So yeah, slightly disorganized sequence of thoughts, but I hope you got something from it.
Very cool, and I'm sure others do too, and thank you for sharing, Dario. That's quite an experience for sure. I really like what you said. When it comes down to it, hope is a fundamental part of a spiritual life, and just any kind of seeker life. I mean, or living at all. I mean, if you lose hope, then you can't live effectively. And we all have fears, for sure.
But one thing that has been my curse throughout this journey is this, inherent standpoint that I took very early, unconsciously at first, but then more and more consciously, is that I believe only what I see. What I can see for myself, I believe it. The rest is just hypothesis creation, if you like, if you like, and this is this is pretty difficult one, because if you have this standpoint, it is very, very difficult then to get into a system of beliefs, I think.
I think you're right. Y'all want to throw in anything on Dario?
Somebody in the comments said, "Amazing, Dario. It is a privilege to hear you speak so candidly and openly," and that's just how I want it. That's how I feel as well.
Books is Jason
Thank
Harrigan.
You.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Tom, you got anything to throw in on for Dario? What Dario had said?
I don't want to take much time, but thank you, Dario. That's really wonderful to get that type of light from you and on your experience. It's difficult for me to properly understand your because of how our brains all work differently. It's difficult for me to properly understand how your search for something that in your expression, I think you said, takes everything, wraps everything together, or sorts out things in a way that makes sense to you. it sounds to me a very rational way to approach the world, which is very much in line with the scientific approach and scientific background that you personally have, right, Dario? And that reminds me of sorry, I'm gonna mention a Divine Comedy, guys. I cannot
Bring it.
Of course.
and of Virgil when he in Purgatorio has to at a certain point say goodbye in a very moving scene, but he has to say goodbye because there's something of us that transcends rationality, and that's I think Noah called it hope or friendship. We can call it something else, but it's a way to achieve still some sort of knowledge, even if it's not rational knowledge. And that's the one of the main differences that I noticed when talking to religious or non-religious people, each one in their own flavor. So, and it's like there is a negative connotation to this. It's really an approach. It's a view. It's a way of thinking. But I think that's the main difference that I see.
Very cool. It is always encouraging to hear other people's path, even if they're, one, not offering any answers, and two, not even systematizing it in any real way. To hear somebody speak candidly and openly about their personal experience and their personal internal life is encouraging and works to give each other hope. So thank you very much, Dario. And next, go, Christy.
All right. I did think of one thing too that I wanted to add to as well. I've been reading like so much C.S. Lewis lately. So much C.S. Lewis lately. But I've also read him like all of my life, like so much C.S. Lewis. So and I do remember at one point him saying that before he was a Christian, like one of the most just really difficult things he went through was somebody very close to him died and just constantly had nightmares as they were dying, like a fear of death, and helping that person, die was one of the hardest things that C.S. Lewis went through. And I know that really stayed with him until he did find himself at peace as a Christian with the idea of death. And he found it, within his own discipline, believing that Jesus was the one true myth that came true. Like he studied myths in as a professor, and he just decided, okay, this is the one myth that actually came true. So that was kind of like how he found his peace. And I just thought it was really cool that he found it within his discipline. So that was like his journey. And I just was like seeing his internal journey there was like really instructive for me. So I really love hearing people's journeys too.
Nice.
So fascinating. Thank you for being so candid with that. So my journey, I have a very young journey, obviously still. I'm 29. Now I am 29. I spent all last year thinking I was 29, but I was actually 28. So I'm 29 now. I am a Christian, and I grew up in, I believe, what would be called a fundamental Christian home. Sometimes I'm really unsure about the labels of what things are actually called with labels, but I believe it would be called a fundamentalist home. And it was like so loving. It was very sheltered. It was like a fairy tale. And it was a really wonderful home, but very, very sheltered. I went to a very small, well, when I was really young, I went to a large Christian school in Fremont, and then California. I've lived in California all my life. I've never hardly left California. Like we went on a few vacations to the East Coast to visit family, but I've never been out of the US, and I've barely been to a few other states, so I haven't traveled much, never been to Europe or anything. So it's very sheltered, pretty much. Yeah, that's how I would describe my life. And most of my adult life, I've just been inside this house because I have an autoimmune disease. So I guess you would say I've spent a lot of time alone, with God, I get like I've spent a lot of time just working on reading my Bible, and my faith has been like such a consolation for me. And either it would, my experiences were going to break my faith or strengthen them. I really had two decisions. I was going to be like, screw this, or it's going to keep me alive. And it kept me alive. So that's it. It had to get, so let's start from the beginning. That wonderful fairy tale childhood, went to the Christian schools. We moved to a very rural area when I was about 9, when the gangs started forming up in our neighborhood in Fremont. We moved to a very rural area in Northern California, and I went to a very small Christian school, still very sheltered. And then I went to public school for high school, and that's where the sheltering sort of started stopping. And that was a bit of a culture shock. And I realized at that point that my faith started getting kind of real at that point. Like some of my teachers like challenged me a little bit, and I was like, you know, I met the biology teacher, told me about evolution. I was like, no, creationism. I started a club at school for apologetics, and I was like, Lee Strobel, you know. I did that whole thing. I had a phase, and that was a really good phase for me to go through. You know, I think I still think that was really good. I learned a lot, and I ended up just deciding that I'm not much of a scientist, and that ultimately I still don't really, I think science is a beautiful and a wonderful thing, and I don't really know what's going on with it, but it doesn't really affect my faith very much. I think scientists do what they got to do, and my faith is not super related to it. And for scientists, they gotta figure that stuff out. But you know, if I was educating my kids, I would have to make decisions about textbooks, and I'm sure I would find something that worked. Homeschool moms do this kind of thing all the time. It would work out, and it would be fine. You know, teaching the creation story. These are things that I don't think it would be a big thing in my family. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. My children would figure it out. It's not going to be a faith make or breaker for me or my children, I don't think. Hopefully. It's, to be honestly, anyways, it was a journey that I definitely went through as a young person. It was a big deal in our family, but we got through it. Everything's okay now. That was my first major faith struggle, was evolution versus creationism, is what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout way. And we got through it. Then came the autoimmune disease, and getting married very young. I got married right before my autoimmune disease hit, and it's a really good thing that I did. We got to have 1 year of fun, and then my autoimmune disease hit, and that was really hard. But I'm very thankful for my husband. He, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I'm so sorry. He's been such a blessing and so wonderful. He's such a gift from God, and I really, really love him. And I really, oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's beautiful, Christy.
Deep breath. I'm not much of a,
I am personally so thankful for Kevin as well.
yes. Gosh. He is one of the reasons that my faith is so strong, because I just feel so taken care of, you know? And I have everything that I need, and even though an autoimmune disease is very hard, there's so many people that have such hard things, and I just have always had everything that I needed. And I know some people have faith in so much worse circumstances, and I just feel like everything has worked out so extremely well for me. Um, that seems like a really shallow reason to have faith. Everything has just worked out so well for me, but like I really just have been reading the Bible since I was very young, and going to church and believing that God would take care of me, and following the practices that I've been taught and learning from the Bible. And it has kept me peaceful and happy through so much. I feel like so calm on a daily basis. And I feel like our marriage is very calm and happy. And we obviously go through stuff, but like we've never like talked about divorce. Like there's never been anything, and we've had some serious strains because of my illness. So I feel like following the principles of the Bible and our upbringings of Christianity have just worked out so well for us. So in a way, it's very practical. Kevin also grew up in a Christian home. So a lot of it is really practical. As far as the intellectual stuff, as I get older, I often will see that other faiths, there are other there are things that I see, like talking with Noah all the time. He'll like say something and it'll be like something about his faith is like, that makes so much sense. Whereas I had heard, something about Buddhism that was like, that was a misunderstanding about Buddhism that I had. And he'll say something and it's like, oh, that's okay, that makes sense, So like I understand, or like something C.S. Lewis will say in Mere Christianity. Like I was just reading Mere Christianity for like the nth time, and he was just saying, like, the Bible doesn't say anything about people who haven't met Jesus. We don't know what happens with them. It doesn't say what happens to them. So that's a thing for God to decide. That's between those people and God. So there's lots of things that, I just had like things that maybe that really bothered me when I was younger. What about those people in the jungles of wherever who haven't met Jesus? Like, those kinds of things have always really bothered me, those kinds of moral issues. But just being at peace with my life, seeing that I'm growing, just learning all the time. I feel like I've really, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty at peace with my life, with being Christian, just keeping my eyes open and trying to grow and do good in the world. And obviously, did I even say this? Jesus is my savior. That is the central portion of my faith. I'm sorry, this was so disorganized. I hope I got something across here. I think I'm just going to end here. That was a mess. There you go.
Beautiful sharing, Christy. Beautiful sharing.
Gosh.
Sorry. Something
Thank you, Christy.
For you.
There you go.
It's highly organized for us. Remember that.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. There you go.
And that's a testament to what we kind of have to do here. In this kind of dialogue, a lot of times these kind of thoughts are not well formulated. I mean, not for discourse. They're not formulated in a way of presentation in a logical stream or even a chronological stream. Impulses and decisions and reasons happen in our life. We don't make them happen. They happen to us. Like what Dario said there, you can't make yourself believe something, and you can't choose to believe something and then have conviction. You can't give yourself that. This kind of thing is either you resonate with it or you don't. If you don't, then you're a seeker. And thank you very much, Christy. I would say it's one of these things of, I definitely want to point out that like Christy's sharing there, I see something where, there is this tendency to feel self-conscious for making certain decisions about yourself in your life. These are your decisions to make and things like that. But in sharing, you're self-conscious about doing that. That kind of thing is a hindrance to dialogue, and that's why this kind of thing is beneficial. Another reason why this kind of thing is beneficial for people to see. Very cool.
Thank you.
Tom, Dario, do it. Anything?
Just wonderful. I don't dare adding anything. It's really it's really beautiful the way you expressed it, and the way I think it very clear your path and how you got to where you are. It's a blessing to be there.
And Jason, I'm sure you're seeing it, Christy. I will point it out this time that Jason Harrigan, Black Sheep Books, is in the chat, and he says, "Thank you, Christy Louise. Beautiful words that land on the ear of the heart." And it definitely did. Thank you for being so honest and open. And it takes courage to have this kind of dialogue, right? So step up, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Definitely, but just a comment from me as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing this. It really beautiful, and it what became quite obvious, I think, not only to me but to everybody, how different approaches, different paths this is, and different rationale behind the spiritual journey we have, just between me and you. And I guess, Tom is going to add another dimension, and Noah yet another one. Right. And this, when you spoke, I came to think once I was probably 20, 21, something like that. I was in church here in Sweden, and in my searching, and I spoke very much to a guy about these topics, and he gave me a New Testament, a study version of New Testament, and the name of the book, probably it's not the only one, but this was the first and last I saw that was called. It wasn't called New Testament. It was called Handbook for Life. Right.
Yes.
And
right.
And this is illustrating quite well, the how I perceive that you are on your personal faith journey. It gives you kind of a guidelines on how to go on with every day. And this is something. This is the dimension that I'm missing in my personal journey, because my personal journey is more about getting out of the bubble, kind of trying to get out from the matrix. It is so it is so different perspectives. Fascinating.
Very, very, very much so. Thank you for pointing that out, Dario. I will just say also, the striking difference even between people that are very, very, very similar is something that needs to be understood, and just kind of kept in mind in entering this kind of dialogue, for sure. And there is a tendency to look at that like a spiritual life, just believing life, if you're a believer of whatever, that at that point you're done. You've made your decision to believe in something, so then you just kind of you have it all, at least for yourself. You have this framework, so you're done. There's not growth within that, and there definitely is. And through your path, Christy, you show that very well, that it's not easy. You struggle. Everybody struggles with faith. Even somebody who has is firmly a believer or been a believer for a long time, you still struggle with aspects of faith and aspects of life in light of your faith and things like that. So the spiritual life is every bit, and I would I'll say more about it later. But the spiritual life is every bit as rich and a struggle, if it can be put like that, as
100%.
a secular life. It just doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't make things easier. That's for sure.
100%. I should say that. I still have things like that still come up that I'm like, oh, I'm probably going to be working on this one for a couple years where I won't have an answer, or if I ever get one, but hopefully.
All right, Tom, now's the time.
All right.
You ready?
Love this dialogue, by the way. And you're absolutely right, Noah. It doesn't matter religious or secular. Like they used to say, life is in the trenches, right? It doesn't really make a difference. It's a battle for all of us. I'm going to try and be brief and try and be clear about my personal path. I was born and I grew up in a normal Italian Catholic family in Italy, and I remember having been a seeker for a long time, like you guys. I think we all, especially in the book community and bookish community, we all tend to share a certain curiosity, a certain intellectual curiosity, and that's probably something that has accompanied us since we were really young, right? So when I went to the Catholic school that I went to, I remember the priest or the nun telling me about God, telling me about Jesus, and defining the concept of God. And I was really, really young. I'm not kidding, probably 6 or 7, and thinking. I still remember myself thinking, this doesn't make any sense at all. This invisible. You say it's invisible, and you say it's with me all the time, even when I'm going to the restroom, even when I'm going to
Right. The angels watching you shower, right?
what
Right.
what is it? It doesn't click. It doesn't really, there are too many questions. I remember thinking there are too many questions, and as it happened with many of my old friends as well in Italy, we kind of gradually went out of or lost interest in the religion in our teenage years. It just happened. That's the way it happened. And then personally, I took the important choice to leave my country and my town, and I moved to London. In London, as I shared with some of you guys already, Noah, Dario, and Christy, I found a treasure trove of opportunities for my life. They were material opportunities, fantastic ones, really, really positive ones, and gifts to be taken, to be picked, but nothing from the spiritual standpoint that was really fruitful. Even though I had started feeling a seeking again, this type of deep seeking. It's never abandoned me. And you probably know many fathers of the church and theologians, they tend to say, God is always at work inside yourself, in your life. God is always at work. It doesn't matter where you are with your life. God is always at work. He's doing something with you. And it's just that we are so limited. We don't understand it. I'm sure that God was doing something with my life. And I was almost to the point of waiting for an opportunity, or you could call it with a very ancient term, a sign, something like that. Because I was on Sunday, for example, I found myself in different type of churches and different type of confessions. I would go to a Pentecostal mass, I would go to a Baptist mass, because in London you have almost one different religion for every individual who lives there. And so what happened is something similar And I know this is my defect. I cannot talk about anything without thinking about Dante. But something similar between Dante and Beatrice, which is which is a regular relationship love, drove me to the love for God. And the way that God gave me that sign, or at least reached through to me in London, was through my wife. This is something like you say, you cannot retrace your spiritual life without touching your own heart. So obviously, it's not easy to communicate that very, very clearly. But I was ill in one particular moment in London, and if any of you know, London is not the most warm and fuzzy type of place. Your neighbors will not come with a warm soup for you if you're sick, and with a cover or some pats on the back. Nobody does that for you. So I was very ill.
Come to the South, Tom.
I'd love to. I know that's a different culture, but what happened is that I had just started dating this girl, and I had a wonderful feeling, but we were just dating. What happened is that she showed up all of a sudden with some medicine, with love. She brought me love, and that's absolutely how God reached through to me, like light, like pure light.
Right.
It was light. I was lucky to understand it, and since then it's been. I feel really blessed because the love for my wife has blossomed into uncontainable love for God.
That's a beautiful thing, Tom. And I'm reminded of what Christy said as well, right? With Kevin, him showing the love and support there, strengthening her faith, right?
Very cool. Sorry, guys.
It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
We wanna add anything or think anything? I'm reminded. I'll name drop. William Blake said, "God only acts or is in existing beings or men and women." Right? God only acts and is in existing beings. That's what it is. God is not this magic, eraser for our wrongdoings or whatever, and he's not this magic being, this white bearded man up in the sky somewhere. God only acts or is in existing beings or men as in mankind. So
yeah,
it's beautiful that both of y'all have pointed to your faith in a way of through your loved ones. Those that love you, not just those that you love, but it's the act of showing somebody showering love on you. It's beautiful.
Yes. The people who love me in my life, that's usually where I have my strongest beliefs coming from, is the people who've loved me most. And I've heard this too about political beliefs. It's usually your loved one's beliefs is usually what you end up believing. But yeah, that's not related to religion though. So anyways.
Just an aside.
Sometimes.
Red herring. Swimming by. Ignore the red herring.
What do you think, Dario? You want to throw in on Tom's discussion here?
Now, I'm in analyzing mode. That's you have Dante, I have that effect. Yeah. And this is I'm here, and again this is yet another dimension still, even though there are a likeness to what Christy said, that there's perhaps one difference is that you do not have this kind of consistent religious upbringing, and getting into building up certain way of living. But what I hear you saying is that basically you at one point you kind of dissolved your seeking and your doubts in love, and through that you have found that it's almost like a pantheistic experience, right? Is that rightly perceived?
I don't know if pantheistic really is the word, but it's through love that that God reached me, and the way I feel every day is that that's been the blessing. They say that the channels can be like Christy mentioned or Noah, can be endless. It could be beauty sometimes. It could be beauty itself, beauty of art, a work of literature, for example, or music, and through that there is work done on your life from the divine. In the mind of a seeker has to follow, because it needs to be satisfied. You cannot have a happy heart and an unhappy mind. You know what I mean? If you're and I think this is very specifically interesting for you, Dario, given what you shared with us, because in my case that followed. I started to research and read a lot of books, and I'm not kidding, because we're talking about science and faith in these videos, but specifically about science and faith, because for me, that was the one most important intellectual problem that I hadn't been able to resolve in my seeking. And so very more intelligent people than me, obviously, helped me understand it. And one of those was Joseph Ratzinger, who is one of my greatest intellectual heroes. And in his book Science and Faith, very creative people, always the same title, but the point was the same. The point was the compatibility of the two. And once I had been, because we are many things, right, in our body, there are not just one thing, not just one heart, but there's your brain. So you need to harmonize the whole. You need to integrate everything, and that was the last piece of the puzzle that went in the right place when I put that together, the relationship between science and faith. I was ready for my faithful, spiritual, religious life in the light of Catholicism, knowing very well that it's coming from my tradition. That resonates with me. If I have been hearing the Hail Mary since I was 2 years old, that obviously that will have more emotional resonance than an Indian mantra. That's pretty obvious.
Right.
But do you feel that through this journey that you actually have come to a certain conclusion, come to at peace with your view on your own being?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Does that change, or is it kind of okay, you arrived at a certain point and now it's constant, I got it?
Or no,
is it
in that sense? No, it's very dynamic. Very dynamic. It's like purgatorio, Dario. There's always a walking forward. There's always a work in progress all the time. I don't feel I've arrived anywhere.
How about you, Christy? Do you? How is your feeling? Is it evolving for you, or is it kind of that I got it. I have a full understanding of kind of.
I love this.
What was the blueprint behind my being?
My faith, or my understanding of faith?
You are being at peace with your existence.
I'm glad you asked that. I kind of left out a lot of that stuff. I guess I've always just assumed that I was here because somebody wanted me here, I guess. I just didn't assume that I assumed that I couldn't be here because I was an accident. I don't know. I guess things don't just, accidental things usually aren't, they don't work very well. I don't know. Usually accidents are just piles of, they aren't piles. They're just scatters of dust. I don't know. I just didn't see how it could be an accident that I was here. It honestly never occurred to me till somebody told me that it was all an accident. And I was like, that's dumb. It's not an accident. But not that I think science is dumb, like we were talking about. I definitely don't think that. I just think.
I love that, Christy. Very much
Yeah.
so. I'll just kind of interject in there a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, translate for me. Thank you.
That, just because science has this kind of chance and randomness or uncertainty to its tenets at this point doesn't mean that it's like you had said in your sharing that they're in completely different fields when we're talking about why we believe what we believe, and so it doesn't undermine. They don't undermine each other unless you internally are struggling in kind of reconciling that kind of stuff. I personally don't find any dissonance between the two, because when it comes down to it, science is something that is still evolving, and we're gaining more knowledge and that kind of thing, and faith and the path work, spirituality is a whole different kind of question, very much more based on the individual. And I think that anybody who really wants to go to the fundamental practice of spirituality, quiet, no senses meditation, you will be maybe scared.
Yes, that would be terrifying.
You might be scared and be terrified, but if you can sit through that and you can go into that, you will find that there is a reason, or there is a meaning, and you might not be able to say what that meaning is. We're not here to give answers, but like you said, we're not accidents. We're not random chance. You know what I mean? That's a fundamental kind of thing to believing believing anything other than a strict kind of materialist kind of go to the Blake said it as if you believe your beginning is a worm, then your end is a worm, that kind of thing. And if you believe your beginning is with God, then your end is with God. And that is a testament to that the mind and the consciousness of the individual is essential in this thing. We're not talking about what is out there and trying to explain it or anything like that. We're talking about personal path.
Yeah, and thank you, Noah, for listening to all of us. It's at the end of the day, this is your channel, so you gave us a great opportunity to share with us like this.
I love it. I love this stuff.
We'd love to hear yours.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you all for sharing.
Good idea,
I love this
Tom.
stuff. I love this kind of conversation. I got to a point in my life where I do enter into this kind of conversation with people very easily, depending on their capacity to have the kind of conversation. Of course, if they want to share, or if they're able to express it, then I can enter into that kind of conversation with people, and I love it. Once I realized that I have this kind of ability, I love it. I love to do it. So I'll give it like a chronological, seems like the way to go. But I'm more talking about my experiences. So early life, middle school, high school, I was a reader from an early age, and my family was a very secular, uh, no hardcore religious beliefs to be spoken of, but uh, uh, they weren't materialists. They just didn't care too much. They were agnostic, I would say, but they had leanings toward uh, a spiritual underpinning to reality, but they weren't necessarily uh, believing or going towards a certain belief system. And they did take me and my brothers. I'm the oldest of 5 boys, so I have 4 younger brothers, and they did take us to church us at least twice a year, Easter and Christmas, right? And then a lot, most of the time, more through at least more formative years like middle school, late elementary and middle school, these kind of formative years like that. Um, and it was a thing where they didn't know how to teach this kind of stuff. They didn't know how to give a spiritual aspect to the kids or something like that. So you go to church and let the Sunday school do it, or let us just hear hear Bible stories or whatever, right? And I was always very uh much a thinker. I was a very critical thinker, like you were saying in your story, Tom. I definitely relate to that at a younger age, kind of being a critical thinker. And I remember my father sitting down with a guy from the church that we had gone to. He lived down the street from us, and that's why they found that church or whatever. So he lived down the street, and he had come over, and he was sitting at the dining room table across from me, and they were having this conversation. And he asked him about a movie, and the guy goes, I don't watch any movies that don't directly kind of help me in my spiritual life. And I was like, and I mean, I know I'm just sitting there listening, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And he also said, um, if you believe what it is that you say you believe, like being a Christian, right? Then you're going to read your Bible, and you're going to you're going to try to understand this, right? And I kind of and I took that myself to heart. I was like, well, yeah, if I wasn't even in the conversation, right? But I was hearing that, and then I said, okay, well, I mean, if I believe this, then I'm going to read it. So when I was like in 8th grade, maybe summer after 8th grade, before 9th grade, I read the New Testament and really got into Revelation. I remember um, writing out like a timeline of Revelation in a notebook that I had or something like that, and just trying to wrap my head around what was being said. And my dad came up to me and he said, look, nobody understands what this really means. Okay, nobody understands what this says. This is a book that gives you answers so that you don't have to ask questions anymore, and you can just live your life. And I was like, really? Right now? You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, I mean, I hear you, but that doesn't wash with me. You know what I mean? So long story short, with that kind of thing, through high school and this kind of influences that I had with, I totally became disillusioned with Christianity. There was no devotion. There was no kind of feelings of, well, this is a capital T truth. It was that my parents even, looked at it like, well, you got to have answers from somewhere, right? So this is where the answers are. And the answers was something that they said that nobody understood. Like, what are you talking about right now? So I became a seeker, and I was a seeker very hardcore. I love reading fundamental texts from spiritual traditions. I've got into everything I could get my hands on, really. But in first year college, I came in contact with Buddhism. A friend of mine told me, she had said that it's a very beautiful religion, and she had lived in Japan for a while. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to check it out. And I got a couple of books just from local bookstore, you know, some new bookstore, and I read them, and I fell in love with it as well. What resonated with me about it was that it is all about personal responsibility in Buddhism. You take personal responsibility for what you believe, what your actions are, what your thoughts are, your reactions to people. There is no blaming others. If you think a certain way in reference to somebody else, that comes from you, not from them doing you wrong. They don't cause you to do anything. And so I loved that. And I embarked on a meditation practice. That is the practice of Buddhism. That's all there is to do, really. But I've had my mind blown many times over by Buddhist Sutra, and very much I think I had noticed that I'm very strong within. I feel like I have a strength within to not be pushed by something. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm alienated from my feelings, and doesn't mean that I'm alienated from if somebody is doing me wrong, not being able to see that kind of thing. But I don't have to become hurt. I don't have to be thrown into a negative state because somebody is being mean or physically hurting me. You know what I mean? I can be sorry for them and just handle the situation, do what I got to do, that kind of thing. So I got there, and that kind of thing got me into mind science and this kind of stuff. And at this point, I had a job where I worked in a mall. I was in college and I worked in a mall, and I was working at one of those kiosks in the middle of the mall. And there was a guy that worked at a kiosk next to me, and he was a Muslim, right? Very strong Muslim from I don't know where, but he lived in a house with a whole group of Muslims, like they all came here, you know? And he invited us over for dinner. We had this kind of friendship. And I, being a Buddhist at that point, I classify myself as an atheist. Because there's no deification, there's no deity. And so I was a spiritual practitioner, but atheistic in my beliefs, because I didn't worship anybody. There wasn't anything like that. It's all about me taking responsibility for myself and my own growth, my own development inside. So we would have these kind of debates or just talks. And we were talking about Revelation one day, which I know a lot about. And I just said the typical atheist kind of thing to say, which I thought was brilliant at the time, right? I said, you know, how is this all loving, all caring God, Jesus, sitting on the seat of judgment, which is actually called the mercy seat, right? But sitting on the throne of judgment, how is this all loving, all caring, omnipotent God going to judge people and send them to hell? I don't see how he would do that. And the guy looks right at me and he goes, well, then you know what he's going to do, right? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, we don't know God. Okay, God is unfathomable. God is a mystery, and you don't know God any more than anybody else knows God. We don't know God. I don't claim to know God, but I can tell you that if judgment and mercy are where you're sitting like that, and you are saying, well, how would an all-loving God, you know, condemn somebody to hell for, you know, 70 years, 80 years in the world where they're confused? Why would they send them to hell? That doesn't make sense to me. He goes, well, then you know what the judgment is going to be, right? And it blew my mind. It completely blew my mind. And I was like, you know, there's a lot more to God than what I thought, you know, and that kind of thing. So it kind of opened me up in that kind of way to an understanding that there's this something that is underneath or behind and in front of and on top of and pushing this thing along and all around on all sides. That is an energy. And so I came into contact with the Lotus Sutra in Buddhism not long after that. That was a mind-blowing experience, because in the Lotus Sutra it is that in Buddhism, which is a religion that I say, it's not deified. You don't need a deity. There's no worship. There is a primal Buddha that is, for lack of a better word, the Most High God is like what what it is kind of showing. And it is an eternal being that is before and absolute and apart from, but kind of, it's just this kind of illustration of a being. Without it, it's not that this being requires anything. It's not a deity that requires worship and things like that. But it was an illustration of that the universe itself is of life and of consciousness. That is where that is a fundamental and the only, the impetus. There's no universe without life and consciousness kind of at its base. It's hard to describe these kind of things, but that's the kind of place that I got to, and these kind of perspective breaks that happened to me. And so I still am very much a seeker. I can't help myself but to go into belief systems and things that are mind-blowing. And the kind of things that I love to explore now is more esoteric Christianity. When I came in contact with Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, that locked down my intellectual mind for a long time. And I couldn't believe that there was something so comprehensive. And this is a Western tradition. And then I saw where the Messiah sits in that framework. And I saw what this kind of thing is. And I'll say that I have no problem with somebody referring to the Bible as myth or the Bible as allegory. I refer to especially the Old Testament, the Torah, as complete allegory. I think that Paul says it in one of his letters, that Abraham and Sarah story specifically is allegory. And when it comes down to it, these are teachings, and they are esoteric teachings. To me, this is what how I approach, and I think that they are endlessly and multi-layered. They're multi-layered, and they're endlessly explorable, and you can grab so much more out of it all the time. And if you've seen that Zohar set that I have, that's my next project. That is Torah study. It is people talking Torah and finding new words and new levels of understanding what it's saying and using it as spiritual practice. That doesn't happen if you think that what the Torah is and that it's saying is historical fact. So I don't have any problem with, somebody who doesn't believe in the historicity of Jesus or any other spiritual being. You know what I mean? But these kind of personages definitely have had a wonderful effect on my life, and I'm grateful for it. I'll leave it there.
That's great. And it's a lot. There would be here. I think, like with all of us, the potential for much longer chats and discussions, but I think this is the purpose for today. I wanted to, one thing that strikes me, Noah, about what you mentioned is when you refer to the deity as God, or the deity as seen from the Eastern side. It strikes me, you mentioned you mentioned that there is a certain type of deity that doesn't require worship because it's there, and that to me resonates a lot and has an echo of St. Thomas Aquinas. That's the way St. Thomas Aquinas talked about God. It's not that you are required by God to worship him. The worship act in itself is something that you do for yourself.
Right.
It's not something that God needs. So I think there is a similarity there in what you were expressing, right?
There definitely is, and that kind of thing, the need within me that I saw to be able to give into, to pour into something that is bigger than myself, whether that be teachings itself. In Buddhism, it's the Dharma, which is the teachings, the body of teachings, and you have reverence, and you kind of give your devotion to that kind of thing. This kind of need to worship and need to pour into something greater than yourself that inspires you to be a more ideal, or something like that, is essential for human beings. So I think that is part of why people seek. I think that's part of why I am the kind of person that I am, and I just see different degrees of that in people that believe certain things, or don't believe, or whatever, but they still have questions. And that the impetus for it is this kind of desire, a desire that is innate.
Absolutely.
And this is it is very interesting. It's now fourth dimension coming into this. Really, it's this is so
The Tesseract.
It's kind of
cool. But this is so cool. It's my brain is like boiling right now. But this is really, it is. I kind of I get the feeling like you have a sense of the whatever you seek, you like you have a sense of what it is. You understand it, and however, still you can't grasp it, you can't reach and get it, and it's like the thing is in a cave, and you kind of constantly finding new holes through which you are kind of there is it, and you're gonna and you really can't reach it, but then before despairing you discover a new hole, and then you go to that one and kind of trying for that. That's the kind of a feeling I get, and
it's a very cool illustration. I would say that the thing is this thing is transcendental.
Yeah,
it's something that is it's something that you can't grasp. It's not for grasping. We're here to have reverence for it.
yes.
And then
Eureka!
but within, we are within ourselves, we can feel it as well. So it's also like an internal thing. So it truly is something like, once having a number of perspective breaks myself, then I really, I find truth in all scripture. I mean, I love scripture of New Testament scripture, things like even just very simple things like the kingdom of heaven is within you is just such a wonderful thing, to hear and to just postulate. But it took a while. That thing that doesn't mean anything to someone who has, no frame of reference for what is meant by the kingdom of heaven. You
But,
know,
but why are you seeking? What is the reason? It is like banally, like okay, it's hobby. I'm just interested,
because
or is it something
I
else?
also, as well as you, Dario, I also have hope that one day I will understand. One day I will be able to fully understand, but it's
Good luck.
the journey is just as fun.
But the journey, my journey, there is this hope, but kind of in the bottom of it, as I said in the beginning, it started with some, with this fear, and then went over into grief. There is a certain what you would see as a negative feeling. However, you shouldn't underestimate fear as a driver towards something good.
Sure,
That's
sure.
that's really
Sure. Well, the
Well,
oldest extant writing is Epic of Gilgamesh, right?
Yeah.
And what drove him is the exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
The fear of death and him coming to face with his mortality. So there's the oldest spiritual
No.
text, mythology, whatever it is.
But
That we have.
how much fear do you guys have in your spiritual seeking? And
Me?
Yes.
Now? Zero. Absolutely none. No fear. No way. Fear is something that is a limiting thing,
No, but
and I'd if I'm scared of doing something, I do it.
no,
I make a decision to do it right then.
not fear of doing something, but how the driving force behind the exploration is it is it
It's a thirst for knowledge.
seeking, is it
A
seeking
thirst
light
for
or,
wisdom.
or fleeing darkness? What is it?
It's seeking illumination. It's seeking light, for sure. It's wanting to expand, wanting to in my case personally, it is embodying more virtues, patience, wisdom, concentration, effort, energy,
Yeah, but
generosity. Go
also,
ahead.
if I understand correctly, Dario, you're also referring to the rationalization of the fear of death, which is something that we cannot get away from. It's part of us, the fear of death, right? Is that what you're referring to as well?
Yeah, it is. It's to in every emotion, something is propelling every emotion, right? And it is when you're doing something, you are driven by something. It could be different kinds of forces, and in this particular movement, which is our spiritual journey, it is simplified. Conceptually, I can see that okay, you can have either kind of pulled by light or pushed by darkness in the kind of in this journey, trying to escape hell or striving for paradise. There's you have that. So how where is the weight in this spiritual journey? Is it light or darkness? What is it? What is pushing? What is propelling you forward?
I guess
It's a very personal question. I'm sure we'd all have different answers for that.
Yes.
What is okay? Well, let's finish it. Let's end it on that. What is the impetus and propelling your spiritual journey?
Definitely the side of life. In my case, the side of the ultimate goal being constant growth. In my case, spiritual growth. I have a lot to understand still, to develop, to grow, and that's my goal.
Nice.
Would you see yourself as an optimist or pessimist?
Oh, 1000% optimist.
If not an idealist, let's bring it.
Close to that.
Christy, you want to go? Or are you thinking still?
I'm thinking. I don't know if this is exactly what you mean.
What propels your spiritual journey?
Well, I don't know if this is. I don't know if there's a right answer or not. The main thing that has always, like, really, since I was a child, given me the most thought about my religion, my faith, I don't know, has been like I've always been really wanting everybody around me to have the best time with God, the best faith that they could possibly have, the best walk, the best time here on earth, and then in after earth that they could possibly have. And that's been my main concern. I've always thought about that, and that's why it always really bothered me.
Community.
The question. Okay, yeah, like, yeah, yes. I wanted people to just be okay with God. That was always my main driver. So I was always just, I don't know if that makes sense, but like the questions about other people.
Because like we said at the end of the last video, right? Everybody, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on belief or non-belief, or what belief system you do subscribe to, what everybody would love for everybody else to understand them and to think the same way. Everybody wants one. Even the atheists and scientific materialists, they want everybody to think the way that they do. Everybody wants unification.
Yeah, I just want everybody to be okay.
We want community. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Are you optimist or pessimist, Christy?
I've always been unsure with the question. I guess I guess an optimist. I don't know. I tend to try and be happy when I present myself, so probably an optimist.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not very self-aware, I guess. Not today.
Very cool. All right, so before you ask me specifically, Dario, I am an unabashed optimist.
Yeah, I know.
and a full-on, idealist. I mean, Buddhism is an idealism. When it comes down to it, there is, and that is, I would not be the spiritual being that I was without my Buddhist background. I love it. And there is I mean, it's said, but it's just an understanding that given enough time, and we have all the time in the universe, that eventually all sentient beings will be raised up and enlightened, and we will all be in a beautiful, wonderful place together. It will happen because it is what everybody desires in their inmost heart. Nobody wants to be angered. Nobody wants to be baffled. Nobody wants to be confused or live in this, kind of world where evil is done to others, this kind of stuff. It will be transcended because it is a desire. And not just that, we have so many beings and people that have made it their goal to change that kind of thing within themselves first, and then also in the culture. So those kind of beings have the energy, and they're putting effort towards that. You could argue that there's beings that are fighting against that, but they're not consciously fighting against that. They are being selfish and just being to themselves, trying to get everything they can and don't care who they hurt in the process, but they're not consciously fighting against that. The move to growth and development and love, brotherhood in that way is something that is organized and is something that by the consciousness and people's minds we are doing. And I think it has its own energy, and we feed into that energy, we pour into it, and it builds and grows, and there's no stopping it. I frame my own personal path in terms of growth and development as well. Dario, again, I definitely relate to the kind of thing that you said there. Growth and development is what it's all about. We're on a path. We're on a journey. And so I have already recorded a video. I'm just going to drop it on Thursday, but I've already recorded it. And I speak into that kind of thing a little bit. So I just don't, I wanted to let that be known. I explore confession from a Buddhist perspective. So it is very interesting. And I love to look at those kind of things. And growth and development is what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is very interesting. This is, it's, but for me, as I mentioned from the beginning, this fear and grief and drive and so on. At my work, my co-workers, you have read Asterix, I guess.
Who, me?
Asterix. Asterix, you know Asterix? No, Americans don't know Asterix. Tom, you know Asterix.
Asterix?
Yes.
I mean, I know the symbol, the asterisk is a little star.
No, Asterix. It's a comic. It's a comic book. Okay, that it's probably a European thing. It's French.
Right.
It's French, I think, Tom. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this. There's this character called Magnifix. He's the king of Gauls, and he's the guy who goes with a shield over his head, like heaven is gonna fall down on him. That's me, and. So there is this, and now on this very limited sample of four study objects, I think I can identify certain correlation between driven by dark is driven by light, being optimist and pessimist. The correlation. I cannot prove any causality though. But there might be a correlation.
He's figuring us out, guys. All right.
I think
I will say thank you very much, y'all. This maybe Midrash discussion has been awesome, completely awesome.
Great season finale, guys.
Great season finale. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dario.
Thank you, Dom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks,
This has
everyone.
been really wonderful.
Cool. Yeah, wonderful.
We'll see everybody next time. Bye.
See you all. Bye.
Bye.